exactly what we see in ancient Kemet with this whole relationship with the pyramids and the temples, dealing with agriculture and so on and so forth. Same thing we see when you start looking at many of these ancient civilizations and the things that they built is dealing with, astrology or dealing with vegetation or growth or the crops and so on and so forth. Talked about with Osiris and the whole Korax festival, and then him laying straight out is basically dealing with. If you've seen the DVD on Osiris, which would basically be before this, but him laying straight out is basically dealing with rebirth. As I said, he's the god of the underworld because when you're dead, you lay straight out. You're in the coffin, you lay straight out, and it's dealing with the sun's journey through what's under the zodiac. So that circle in that zodiac, as we see in the temple of Dendera, shows you one, they all had a knowledge of astrology, they have a knowledge of the zodiac, which is where we all get it from. And it's important and huge and vital in everything that they did in the ancient world. We see the same thing in Mexico. So when you look north, south, east, west, anywhere in Mexico, all over the world, the one constellation that you're going to see constantly that seems to be in the center of most civilizations in Mesoamerica, Mexico, and North and South America, is the Pleiades. The Pleiades, which is we're gonna talk about a lot in this DVD. The Pleiades is super important, and if you study the Maya, we know they were obsessed with the Pleiades, and just about every ancient civilization around there was obsessed with the Pleiades. So what do we know the Maya for? We know the Maya, of course, for, the calendar, the whole Mayan calendar and everything, which you basically can get, which I have mine right here for like $25 when you go to Chichen Itza. They give you the whole Mayan calendar based off your birth date. And, see my name here, and then they give you the whole constellations and their writing and their number system, which they was really big into numbers. And they give you all this. But the interesting part, if you didn't know before you went there, is it's all dealing with astrology. It's dealing with astrology. So we know they're known for the calendar. We know they're known for basically disappearing, and of course, the big one, 2012, which is supposed to be, to most people, thought was going to be the end of the world. They even made a movie called 2012, scared the hell out of a lot of people. But 2012 marked something important. And we know the whole Mayan calendar dealing with 2012. We know that they disappeared seemingly. If you go to Chichen Itza, you go to these places down there in Mexico, they'll tell you that the Maya is still there. They speak a different version of Mexican, Spanish, what have you, and that it's supposedly they supposedly are Maya people. And when you take the tour, you go to the little villages there and everything like that, and you can believe what you want to believe. But of course, we know they come from the Olmec, and you have the Olmec, then you have the Maya, then you have the Inca, and remnants or traces of those peoples could have possibly been left behind, but to me it's unlikely, which we'll touch on in this video. But, they're known for these things. And what 2012 was about, and some of you guys already know this who study, 2012, you have May 20th, 2012. Just like you had with the shadows creating the effect with the rattlesnake, with the isosceles triangles basically coming down the side of the steps, you have basically what the Maya call the Day of No Shadows, which would be May 20th, 2012. The Day of No Shadows, which what you have is you have the sun and the Pleiades basically coming together at the zenith point, which would be directly overhead. So during this time, if you stood still underneath this sun, and even if you set a bottle down or something that was straight, it would not cast a shadow. You wouldn't cast a shadow, the bottle wouldn't cast a shadow. Anything that's straight up would not cast a shadow. They call it the Day of No Shadows. And the reason why this is important to the Maya is because, one, right where I was at in Chichen Itza, this happening, which they knew was going to happen, years before, a bunch of years before it happened, May 20, 2012, it happened right over the pyramid at Chichen Itza. So it would mark, which it did mark, May 20th, 2012, which is a Sunday. That was a Sunday, ironically. So that tells you that they knew what they was doing when they made sure that day is on a Sunday. But what it marked was a 26,000 year cycle. I think it's over 26,000 year cycle to where you have this happen directly over that pyramid. So at that point. So they marked this, and it was important to them to mark this because 26,000 years will also symbolize the coming of the end of an age, and they would know 2012 would be marking eventually the end of an age and the coming of a new age, which would be what we see now coming, the age of Aquarius. So that's what 2012 was about. So you have basically 60 days after the spring equinox, you get this whole days of no shadows that happen in Chichen Itza. That's important to them, anything involving the sun. And as you guys know, during certain times of the year, I believe it happens twice as well, where you have the sun hit that opening at the top of the pyramid and give you this, illusion, the sun shining through of this serpent, Quetzalcoatl. And this is major stuff. But again, you still have to understand, one, it's a lot of, when you do the research, a lot of math, a lot of numbers in astrology. They were really good with their numbers, the Maya, and math that's in those pyramids as well, just like we see with the Great Pyramids, as if, they were trying to show something, like they understood, as we'll get into in this video. So you have this alignment with the Pleiades and the sun over Chichen Itza in Mexico that the Mayans observed. But you also have so many different civilizations that built monuments and temples and such right underneath the Pleiades and Orion, just like the Egyptians. So you have Tikal, or Tikal, however you want to pronounce it, in Guatemala. And they have the Tikal ruins. And these ruins are pyramids as well. They are absolutely amazing in Guatemala. And when you go there and look at this whole setup, as I'm going to show you later, it matches with a lot of different setups across the world. And it shows you that there was this understanding and unity in the setup of these pyramids and these temples. Now, the pyramids in Guatemala at Tikal also align with the Pleiades. In New Mexico, you have Pueblo Bonito. These ruins also align with the Pleiades. Now, understand, we're talking about a Native American tribes here. We're talking about the Chaco and the Puebloans, Native Americans. Same type of situation as I'm going to show you, where they built temples. They built statues aligning with the Pleiades. And this is in a different part of the world. This is New Mexico we're talking about now. And then we have it in Mexico, but you'll see it's in other places as well. We know Stonehenge aligns with the Pleiades. There's this whole connection with the Pleiades. And remember, I was talking about the rattlesnake in Chichen Itza. The people in Chichen Itza, the Maya, translated the Pleiades. They called it basically the rattlesnake's tail. You look at it, it's kind of sort of shaped like one. But we know the 7 stars are on the Pleiades, and we see the reference to the 7 stars in the Bible. Now, of course, we're talking about, Native Americans, and, the Bible ain't stretched that far yet. But, so we know they didn't get it from the Bible. You also have the Lakota Pleiades star map that also aligns with the Pleiades. And you guys may remember this from the movie of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which we're going to get into in a second. But in the book of Revelations, it's talking about 7 churches. We know about the 7 churches that I showed you guys in Turkey. They also align with the 7 stars on the Pleiades. It's not a coincidence that Job 38:31 is talking about the Pleiades. It's talking about Orion. Amos 5:8 also talking about the Pleiades and Orion. So the Pleiades, probably more than any other star system that I've seen, along with Orion, is talked about the most in the ancient world in Mesoamerica. We see it a lot. It's one of those things where everybody's talking about it, not just the Maya, not just in Mexico, but in, what we call Native American town, Native Americans, America. So you have the so-called Native Americans, which we understand was, of course, black first before the mixture happened. But you find these tribes, and one of the things people don't even get into was, what did the Native Americans actually believe in? Whenever we see stuff on TV, it always go back to animals and the spirit animals and the spirit gods and so on and so forth. But they were heavily into astrology, plain and simple. And it's something that a lot of people have no clue about. And it's one of the things in doing research that when I came across it first time when I was getting into this, it made a lot of stuff make sense. The clothes that they wore, some of the things that they do in their traditions. As I said, you just don't do certain things for no reason. Um, and these people had nobody to front in front of. You understand? It's like you don't put on the front, or it's not a show. The stuff they was doing had to be for a reason, and it had to have some real purpose to it. So we have in Illinois, we have the Cahokia. The Cahokia are the mound builders. You know, they have that whole serpent mound. They have those mounds that look like pyramids that's in Illinois. So just like this serpent in Chichen Itza, as I said, we have the serpent mound in Illinois with the Cahokia, and we have again this alignment with the Pleiades. Now, when we look at this layout with the Cahokia, it's exactly the same as the whole layout in Tikal and its relationship to the Pleiades. So you also have the Pawnee, and again, we're talking about Native American tribes here. This is America. You have the Pawnee in Nebraska. And when you do your research on the Pawnee, they are basically known for watching the stars and for watching the Pleiades specifically. It's the same thing with the Cherokee. It's the same thing with the Navajo. You're going to find the same thing. You're going to find these star maps. You're going to find these structures aligned with the Pleiades and Orion. It's the same thing. And we're talking about, again, Native American, North America. Finding the same thing in North America with the Native Americans, and finding the same thing in Mesoamerica with the Maya, with the Olmec and everything else, in this whole alignment with the Pleiades. Now, you go back to the Pawnee. When you start researching the Pawnee, they give us probably one of the most insightful looks into what the research is showing us when you start to look at this stuff. And again, like a lot of people don't even understand what's happening with the Native Americans, which we'll get into at the end of this video. But it's a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of people don't understand, as I said, their relationship to astrology and how it was big in their civilization and what they did. So now it says here, we're giving this whole connection here. It says, in ancient Egypt, priests wearing a leopard skin mantle on which the spots represented stars play a key role in mortuary ceremonies to prepare the deceased for the afterlife journey. Center, the high priest of the ancient Egyptian city of the sun, cult center of the Giza pyramids, was titled the chief of the astronomers and wore a mantle like this one, adorned with stars. Right, his chiefly son, Skidi Pawnee, astronomer chief. And we see this Pawnee Indian with the same type of situation wrapped with the quilt with the stars on it. So just like in Egypt, we see this whole, comparison. We see this whole thing where you have this situation with stars. And ideally, we want to, look at this and say it cannot be a coincidence. But again, I talked about this in the Believe Saturn State before. When I went to the Grand Canyon, because we're talking about Nebraska not being that far, Illinois not being that far, and of course you had with Arizona with the Grand Canyon, I showed you guys the Pyramid of Isis, which we went past Pyramid Canyon. You got to drive past to get to the Grand Canyon, and the understanding of pyramids being there and the Egyptian artifacts that was found there. And we know there's areas of the Grand Canyon that the public is not accessible to the public. And it's a lot of stuff that they have locked away from the public at the Grand Canyon. But it's an amazing sight. We can't look at it and just think that it was left alone by the Native Americans. But it gives you more insight into this connection with the ancient Egyptians. And it gives you a lot of belief that there was some connection. So if you remember in one of my videos, I talked about what happened in Illinois, which is the mound builders with the Cahokia we just talking about was at. But I showed you guys, remember, supposedly you had a man who had found basically like a crypt, like a necropolis that was filled with Egyptian artifacts and these giant black Egyptian statues and gold statues and all these reliefs in gold and so on and so forth and all these carvings. And supposedly, when you read the story, that the body of Alexander the Great was found there along with the body of Cleopatra. And you had, what the story goes, they basically went there. Well, it's supposed to be like one guy who was coming back and bringing gold and Egyptian stuff from out of there. He didn't really want people to know where the site was. And supposedly he blew it up to keep people from getting their hands on it. We don't know what actually happened, but some of the artifacts was brought out. And some people will tell you it was deliberately made to look poor to basically throw people off. And some people want to say the whole thing is a hoax. But my whole thing is, if you're going to come up with some bullshit, that would be like the biggest crock of shit to say that the body of Alexander the Great and Cleopatra is in Illinois. Like, who would make up such a thing? But the fact that they did actually recover actual gold artifacts, which, they don't really explain that. But the carvings are, yeah, of course, primitive looking and look like somebody's kid can draw it. But you have to look at, like, the Pawnee and look at this relationship with the Egyptians and this whole comparison and ask yourself, could it be possible? And did they actually find these artifacts down there?